Welcome back to ITIL 4 Unplugged, Elevate ITSM. I'm Alex.
And I'm Tyler. And today we're diving into something that literally never sleeps. Monitoring and event management.
Oh, the unsung hero of IT operations. You know, Tyler, I always tell people that monitoring is like having a really good friend who texts you the moment something goes wrong in your life.
That's actually a perfect analogy, except this friend never sleeps, never takes vacation, and has superhuman senses. Speaking of which, Alex, have you ever had one of those moments where your phone starts buzzing at 3 a.m. with alerts?
Oh my goodness, yes. Just last month, our e-commerce platform started throwing memory warnings at 2:47 a.m. Thank goodness for proper monitoring. We caught it before our morning rush of customers even noticed.
See? That's exactly what we're talking about today. So let's break this down for our listeners. According to the ITIL 4 practice guide, monitoring and event management has a very specific purpose to support the normal operation of service components by observing, analyzing, and appropriately responding to changes of state in those components.
I love how they use the phrase changes of state. It sounds so technical, but really it's just, hey, something different happened. Could be good, could be bad, could be neutral. The key is, knowing what's significant.
Exactly. And here's something fascinating from the guide. They define an event as any change of state that has significance for the management of a service or other configuration item. Notice they said significance. Not every beep and boop matters.
Right? It's like the difference between your car's engine light coming on versus your phone buzzing because you got a new Instagram follower. One requires immediate attention, the other, well, maybe not so much.
Perfect example. Now, the guide talks about 4 types of events, and I think this is where it gets really practical. We've got informational, instructional, warning, and exception events. Alex, want to walk through these with some real-world examples?
Absolutely. So, informational events are like your daily good morning from your systems. Think about a user successfully logging into your application. That's an informational event. No action needed, but it's good to know it happened for, reporting or maybe forensic analysis later.
Then we have instructional events. These are interesting because they require a specific human action. Like, imagine your backup system says, hey, the tape drive needs a new cartridge. It's not broken, but someone needs to physically go swap that tape.
Ooh, I have a good warning of an example. Last week, our database server hit 85% CPU utilization. Not critical yet, but definitely time to investigate before it becomes a problem. It's like your friend texting you, hey, you might want to check on your car. I saw smoke coming from under the hood.
And then exception events. These are the drop everything and fix this now moments. Like when that same database server hits 100% CPU and users can't access the application. That's when you're calling people at 3 a.m.
Exactly! And here's what I love about this framework. It helps teams avoid what the guide calls over-alerting. You know that situation where you get so many alerts that you start ignoring them all?
Oh, the alert fatigue. It's like the boy who cried wolf, but with monitoring tools. The guide actually mentions using artificial intelligence and machine learning to help with this. They talk about correlation engines and filtering to reduce the noise.
Speaking of technology, let's talk about the actual monitoring approaches. There are active and passive monitoring. Tyler, can you explain the difference?
Sure. Active monitoring is like being that friend who constantly asks, how are you doing? The monitoring tool actively polls your systems, asking for status updates at regular intervals. Passive monitoring is more like having systems say, I'll call you if I need anything. They only report when something specific happens.
I love the polling example because it brings up frequency. ITIL says you need to balance how often you check things. Check too often and you might actually impact system performance. Check too rarely, and you might miss critical events.
Right. It's like checking your phone every 5 seconds versus checking it once a week. Neither extreme is particularly useful. You need to find that sweet spot based on how critical the system is and, well, how quickly things can go wrong.
Now, here's something really important that I think a lot of organizations miss. ITIL 4 emphasizes that effective monitoring depends on service design. You can't just bolt on monitoring as an afterthought.
Absolutely. They specifically mention that service design should include definitions of what changes of state should be monitored, what they mean, and how to respond to them. It's like building a house. You don't wait until after it's built to install the smoke detectors.
Great analogy. And speaking of building things properly, let's talk about the practice success factors. ITIL identifies 3 key ones. And the first one is huge: establishing and maintaining approaches that describe the various types of events and monitoring capabilities needed to detect them.
This is where the rubber meets the road, folks. You need to understand your service architecture, know your dependencies, and figure out what actually matters to your business. ITIL recommends creating service health models. Think of these like a dashboard that shows you the end-to-end health of a business service.
I worked with a retail company that had a brilliant service health model for their online checkout process. They monitored everything from web server response times to payment gateway connections to inventory database queries. When any piece started showing yellow or red, they could see exactly how it might impact a customer trying to buy something.
That's perfect, because the second success factor is ensuring that timely, relevant, and sufficient monitoring data is available to relevant stakeholders. Notice they said relevant stakeholders. Not everyone needs to know everything.
Right. Your CEO probably doesn't need to know that server XYZ has 73% disk usage, but they definitely need to know if the entire website is down. It's about getting the right information to the right people at the right time.
And the third success factor is ensuring that events are detected, interpreted, and acted upon as quickly as possible if necessary. This is where automation becomes crucial.
The automation piece is fascinating. You need to consider automation tools like workflow management tools, monitoring tools with built-in capabilities, and even AI-powered correlation engines. But here's the key. You should fully understand how to do things manually before automating them.
That's such good advice. I've seen too many organizations automate broken processes and then wonder why their automation doesn't work. You can't automate your way out of a poorly designed monitoring strategy.
Exactly. Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked: the people side of monitoring. The ITIL emphasizes on roles and competencies. Tyler, what did you find interesting there?
Well, they make it clear that there's rarely a dedicated monitoring team. Usually it's the people responsible for service delivery and operations who handle monitoring. But here's the key. Monitoring should be planned at the design stage of the service life cycle.
Yes, and they list all these different roles that might be involved: service owners, developers, architects, testers, operations managers. It really reinforces that monitoring is a team sport, not a solo act.
Speaking of teams, let's talk about value streams. Alex, can you give us an example on how monitoring and event management fits into various service value streams?
Sure. Take incident resolution. Monitoring helps detect incidents in the first place, and then it helps confirm when normal operations are restored. Or think about service requests. Monitoring can detect conditions that trigger automated fulfillment or catch errors during the fulfillment process.
And here's something cool. Monitoring for deployment and release activities. Imagine you're deploying a new version of your application. Your monitoring can help confirm the deployment was successful and catch any issues early.
I love that example because it shows how monitoring isn't just about keeping the lights on, it's about enabling change safely. Which brings us to partners and suppliers.
Oh, this is a big one. Most services depend on third-party components, and those suppliers play a huge role in monitoring. They might provide built-in monitoring capabilities, documentation about what to monitor, or even monitoring as a service.
And here's something critical. If you're using cloud services, you need to make sure you have access to the monitoring data you need. Don't just assume your cloud provider is monitoring everything you care about in the way you need it monitored.
Great point. Now let's talk about capability assessment. ITIL 4 provides this maturity model with 5 levels, from initial intuitive all the way up to continually improving. Alex, where do you think most organizations are?
Honestly, I think a lot of organizations are stuck at level 2. They have basic monitoring in place, but it's not well integrated or strategically planned. They're monitoring things because the tools can monitor them, not because they've thoughtfully decided what matters.
That's probably accurate. The maturity model gives some great criteria for self-assessment. Like at level 2, you should be able to say, events are usually detected immediately after they occur, and the monitoring data is available when needed. and meets user requirements.
But to get to level 3, you need things like the monitoring and event management approach is defined, discussed, and agreed at the relevant level of the organization. And the technologies required for performing monitoring are identified and effective tools are available.
It's a progression from reactive to proactive to strategic. Level 4 starts measuring effectiveness, and level 5 is all about continual improvement.
Which brings us to our recommendations. Use the ITIL guiding principles when planning for monitoring and event management's implementation. My favorite is understand the purpose of the component being monitored, tied to focus on value and think and work holistically.
I love that one too. It's so easy to just follow the vendor documentation about what to monitor, but that might not actually help you achieve your specific service objectives.
And here's another great one. Do not try to monitor events with unknown significance just in case it might be needed in future. That's tied to keep it simple and practical and focus on value.
That's the antidote to alert fatigue right there. Only monitor what matters and make sure you know why it matters.
One crucial advice. Review and update your monitoring strategy regularly. Services change, technology changes, business priorities change. Your monitoring needs to evolve too.
And learn from outages. After every major incident, you should ask, could our monitoring have detected this earlier? Could it have prevented this? What do we need to change?
That's such a powerful mindset shift from monitoring detected the problem to monitoring prevented the problem.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about some practical next steps for our listeners. If you're looking to improve your monitoring and event management practice, where should you start?
I'd say start with understanding your current state. Do you know what you're monitoring and why? Do you know who gets alerted when things go wrong? Do you know how long it takes to detect and respond to different types of events?
Great starting point. And then, I'd recommend mapping out your critical business services and understanding the dependencies. You can't monitor effectively if you don't understand how the pieces fit together.
And please define what normal looks like before you try to detect abnormal. To do this, you need baselines and thresholds that actually mean something in your context.
And don't forget about automation, but do it thoughtfully. Start with the repetitive, well-understood responses. If every time server A hits 90% CPU, you restart service B, maybe that's a good candidate for automation.
Just make sure you understand why you're restarting service B and that it's actually the right response.
Exactly. Don't automate mystery fixes.
Well, folks, we could probably talk about monitoring for another hour, but we should probably wrap up. Tyler, what's your key takeaway from the monitoring and event management?
I think my biggest takeaway is that effective monitoring is really about understanding your services deeply and designing your monitoring strategy intentionally. It's not about having the fanciest tools or the most alerts. It's about having the right information at the right time to make good decisions.
I love that. My takeaway is that monitoring is fundamentally about enabling rather than just detecting. Yes, we want to catch problems, but we also want to enable confident decision-making, safe changes, and proactive optimization.
Perfect. And remember, listeners, monitoring and event management is a practice that benefits from continuous improvement. Start where you are. Be intentional about what you monitor and why, and keep refining your approach.
Before we go, let's remind everyone that these guidelines and recommendations are part of the larger ITIL 4 framework. Monitoring and event management works best when it's integrated with other practices like incident management, problem management, change enablement, and service design.
Absolutely. It's all connected. You can't have great monitoring without good service design. And you can't have effective incident management without good monitoring.
So that's a wrap on our deep dive into monitoring and event management. Keep following Con Punto y Coma for enriched and continuous learning in ITIL and service management. We're here to help you elevate your ITSM journey every step of the way.
Absolutely. Connect with us through our social media channels and website. We love hearing your real-world stories, challenges, and, those monitoring adventures, both the victories and the learning experiences.
Next time on ITL4 Unplugged, we're tackling problem management, the detective work of ITSM that gets to the root of recurring issues.
Until then, keep your systems monitored and your events managed.
And remember, in the world of IT, no news might not always be good news, but the right news at the right time definitely is.